All right, jumping back into module 2 of the reading from test 1. I'll post the link right here. So again, this is going to be the College Board paper test on their site. Test 1, module 2. This can be part 2. We just finished the vocab on the last part. So yeah, let's continue with number 8 here. So the first section is always going to be vocab, and then now we're jumping more into the reading section. It's going to be passages, main ideas, stuff like that. So let's try to get a gist here. So I see this person works at this hall, and I went on with my day's business tranquilly, right? So this is going to be a major describer of this person's mood, and maybe we're going to see a continuation of this tranquility, or we're going to see a contrast, right? So already starting with our next word, right? It feels like we're going to get a contrast. So maybe they were feeling tranquil and then something happened. So suggestions kept wandering across my brain of reasons why I should quit. So right there's our contrast. This person starts as saying they're tranquil, but in their mind, they're already thinking about kind of quitting this job. So if I go through my answers, let's try to look for this contrast, right? In A, to convey a contrast, I already said it, right? Contrast between the outward calmness, which we saw here, and the internal restlessness. So it's probably that they're thinking about quitting, right? So A, I'm probably already just going to answer, but let's get rid of the other ones just to make sure. 2, emphasize the loyalty to this place. No, because she's thinking about quitting, right? Demonstrate that Jane finds her situation challenging and fulfilling. No, that's a really positive word. She's thinking about quitting. And the final one here, to describe Jane's determination to secure employment outside of the hall. So that one might be a little bit tricky because, she does mention like she wants to quit. And look, framing advertisements about new situations outside. So the thing is this is just too specific. These new situations outside of her job, it's kind of a weak inference that it could be specifically employment outside of this job, and also Jane's determination. So that's like really strong wording. They would have had to have specified Jane was determined to seek employment outside of this Thorn Hall place, right? So D, just not enough strength there. And another to add on to that, in A mentions the tranquility at the beginning, and then wanting to quit the job. D is just talking about wanting to quit the job. So A is going to be more of the main purpose of the passage. And let's look at number 9. So this one's long. Maybe I think for this one, what we'll do is we'll look through the text and try to analyze the answers after. So we'll have such a good idea from absorbing the text that we won't even have to scroll back up. So in these texts, usually like text 1, text 2, we really want to pay attention to like the overall kind of author tone or theme. Maybe text 1 wants to do something and text 2 agrees, or it could be the opposite, right? Text 1 wants to do something and text 2 kind of disagrees with them. So we're always looking for kind of the flow of our main subject matter. So look up at the first one here. Most animals can regenerate some parts of their bodies. And then they specifically mentioned this worm. Researchers are investigated. Oh, okay. So some comparison between the worms and the humans, right? Making exciting progress. So far I'm seeing a positive. So exciting, right? We're always looking for words like that. Promising. Here's another one. Promising discovery. Both humans and these worms have this gene. So they're saying, we discovered this gene that is really good for the worms, and then humans have it too. This is exciting, right? So first passage, really positive. What am I anticipating for the second passage? Possibly also positive, possibly negative, right? It could be a contrast. So let's see. When this team reported that they both possess this gene, it caused excitement. Okay, so touching on that. However, I already know what direction we're going. It's going to be negative, right? The gene likely functions very differently, right? Activates other genes involved, but how this switch operates is unclear. So not extremely negative, but definitely kind of diminishing, like let's not get too excited because we're unclear. So they didn't use extremely negative language, like their research was, how they set their experiments up was just incorrect, like it's just wrong. They're just saying like it's actually unclear, let's not get too excited, right? So if I glance through my answers, that's what we're looking for. But let's just analyze this real fast. So the author of text 2 would most likely say what about text 1? It's always going to be a relationship between the two. So we're already prepared for that. And let's go through them. In A, it's reasonable that her team has identified. No, so not reasonable. The text 2 is not going to think it's reasonable. They're disagreeing or diminishing, rather. It is overly optimistic. So that would be good. They're saying, don't get too excited. We're actually unsure about this. So B is good so far. It is unexpected. Like they're surprised. No, we have a good idea of how they feel about it, right? They addressed it, and it's not the most positive reinforcement. And it is unfairly dismissive. How text 2 would describe text 1, no. Text 1 might describe text 2 that way. Text 2 is the one that's being dismissive. Text 2 would never say text 1 is being dismissive. They were being positive. So B for this one, not too bad. And then number 10 here. Let's see what we got. So for number 10, let's move this. And let's zoom up a little bit, and perfect. So we got Shakespeare here. And this poem is addressed to a close friend as if they were physically present. So that could be important. So the person's not there. Weary with toil, I hurry to my bed. Okay, so they're tired. My limbs are traveling tired. Begins a journey in my head. So they're really tired, but they start to think. We all are familiar with this. Body's works expired. For then my thoughts from far where I abide. So their thoughts are kind of roaming. A zealous pilgrimage to thee, and keep my drooping eyelids open wide. So especially that last line is going to be important. So I think they're still awake because their eyelids are still open. And we know they're not together in person. So main idea, we're used to this by now. The speaker's asleep and dreaming about traveling to see a friend. We know they're not asleep yet. They're planning an upcoming trip to the friend's house. So that's pretty specific. It doesn't sound like they're planning a trip. It sounds like they're on a trip in their mind, right? Like they're going to, see their friend, a zealous pilgrimage to thee in their mind. So not planning. They're kind of on a trip in their mind right now. The speaker is too fatigued to continue a discussion. That could be possible. So too fatigued to continue a discussion, maybe beforehand, right? So we know that from the very beginning, they're not together in person. It sounds like they're maybe having a conversation or an experience in their minds, but they're not actually together in person. So I'm not probably leaning towards that one. And then we look at D. The speaker is thinking about the friend. So that's 100% true, right? They're a pilgrimage to thee in their mind instead of immediately falling asleep. So we like D because it reinforces both points. They're not asleep yet, and they're thinking of their friend. So I think D is a good answer for this one. Let's try a couple more here. So number 11, let's try to do the same thing. We will analyze the passage and then look at the answers. So number 11 here, let's get a different color. And let's scroll down here. So this is adapted from the satirical novel, okay. A crowd has gathered outside the room belonging to the warden, an official who reports to the chancellor. So two characters. One man who is more excited than the rest flung his hat high and shouted, who roar for the subwarden? And everybody roars. So it's this, kind of rowdy crowd. Some were shouting bread, some taxes, but no one seemed to know what they really wanted. So that's probably important. There's like confusion in the crowd, right? And let's see how the warden and the chancellor address this. I saw this from my window of the warden's breakfast, looking across the shoulder of the chancellor. So we know there's only two characters, so this is going to be the warden then. Looking past the chancellor. What can it all mean? He kept repeating. So he wouldn't address himself as he, so that's the chancellor talking. He kept repeating to himself, I never heard such shouting before, and at this time of the morning too. Sounds a little bit annoyed. And unanimity. So what I connect that word to is like a unanimous, right? So the crowd is like shouting all together, right? Okay. So chancellor sounds a little annoyed. The crowd shouting all together. And let's see what the answers could possibly be here. So they want to know, how does the chancellor respond to the crowd? Well, he doesn't really, right? He's just kind of confused. So let's see. He asks about the meaning of the crowd shouting. That's true, to the warden. Even though he claims to know what they want. Well, no, that's why he asked, right? So he doesn't know right now. He indicates a desire to speak to the crowd. I don't think so. I think he was just talking to the warden, right? Kind of asking, why are they shouting? He expresses sympathy. No, I mean, this is his little passage right here. He's just confused. It doesn't sound like he expresses any sympathy. And he describes the crowd as being united. True. The unanimous, even though the crowd clearly appears otherwise. And that's why we highlighted the part at the top, because it seemed important. Like they're shouting bread and taxes. Yeah. So D fits both categories. That's going to be the answer here. Let's change to another color. So not too bad. These are really good questions. And this one, another long passage one. Let's move my camera over. And okay, so we have a novel. And this person has a deep emotional connection to her natural surroundings. So nice and short and simple. So we're looking for something that's going to illustrate this, right? Deep emotional connection to her natural surroundings. I go through A. She has never known before how much the country meant to her. Chirping of insects has been like the sweetest music. This sounds like a good answer already. Somewhere with the quail and the plover, little wild things buzzed in the sun. So it's all nature. It's all things around her, and it all sounds pleasant and nice and peaceful, or enjoyable to her. So I'm gonna highlight A. This sounds like it could definitely be possible. Let's go through the rest because that's an important practice process. Talk to the men about their crops and the women about their poultry. A whole day with one young farmer who had been away at school. So it's specific, but it's not talking about her connection to the environment around her, right? I scroll down a little bit and I see drove off alone. The rattle of the wagon was lost between her feet. So that's just her driving, not a connection to her environment. Read the papers, followed the markets, and learned by the mistakes of her neighbors. So maybe that's like her and her community, but not even in that first line, not talking about the environment around her. So it's just going to be A. It's always awesome when it's our first one. You could have just answered A for this one. This one would be a little bit more clear, I think, than some of the harder questions. And maybe we'll finish off with... so that's going to have to be my last part. I do have to go, but I'll upload the next one immediately after this.